Jimmy, we are reviewing episode 6 of season 4 of The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch right off the bat. Just give me, like, in one word, your thoughts of this latest episode.
I can't. I'm busy texting my fans in the chat room. I'm too busy for this right now. What's going on, Cristina? Okay, you want something quick?
One word.
Filler.
Yeah. I'm with you on this one.
Did I steal that from you?
No, actually, I think I got that from you. But like my first thought when I got through watching this latest episode is that both last week's show and this week's show could have been condensed into one show rather than two. But like at the same time, I get it. Okay. We're heading into the midway point of the season, leading up to the mind blowing stuff towards the end of the season, which we see in so many other TV shows. So I think like that part kind of makes sense. But at the same time, like I'm reminded that so much of what goes on there on the ranch doesn't make the final cut. Only 0.7% of
Right.
all of the research done by the people on the ranch make it on the TV show. But as I've also been told by several of the team members, there are sometimes like long periods of time that pass which are relatively uneventful on the ranch. So like I think that's really important to keep in mind that they can't just prod something and say, "All right, here's activity. It's happening every day," because it's not. But and I'll talk about this later in the show, but I was really expecting them to like go back and actually get a sample of the red rock in the mesa to be tested. And we
Well,
didn't get
let's
that.
save that.
Yeah, let's save that.
Because that was a key part of this episode. Okay, so let me say this to everybody out there. I don't want Cristina and I to dilute or pollute what this episode is all about, and we kid about the filler aspect about this because I thought. And Cristina and I were talking about this earlier before the broadcast. I thought this show was pretty good, and I didn't look at it as much as a filler. But see, I messed with Cristina last week. I said now she's looking for filler episodes, and I don't think this one was that as much this week. But there was some very interesting things that I think were brought up in this show. But missing in this show were the boulders. And that's what I thought for sure, especially with the title of this episode, which had Mesa in it.
Right.
Mesa, their play Mesa, that we were going to see something with the movement of the boulders, and we didn't get that this week. But there was a lot of other interesting details. I don't know where to start.
Let's start at the very beginning, Jimmy, where they were kind of they were bringing back Thomas seeing the purple orb to us on the other side of the camera. We saw it as blue. But what I would like to mention is that Travis made a really interesting point in the first several minutes of this latest episode, episode 6, where he stated that in order to be emitting purple light, it would need to be transmitting a lot of energy to make it into that color. And so, regardless on if it was man made or if it was something truly anomalous, that is an important detail that I think that we should kind of look at and think, okay, well, if it's man made, what's something that could have caused it? What piece of tech? And if it's anomalous, we don't know what it is. Why is it creating a purple light? Again, we're seeing it as blue, but Thomas saw it as purple. The question would be why?
Okay, so, and I keep this image up because when this flashed in last week's episode, I immediately went, well, that's at ground level. You can see the lights from the structures that are other houses or whatever they are. But you can see that is at ground level. So whatever is projecting this or emitting this, it's something that is on the ground or somebody standing on the ground and is holding something.
Mm-hmm.
And now Travis's point that he brought up, that purple light is difficult to see. It's difficult to project. I'm not sure what with the physics or scientific or electronics side about that with his background that he would be referring to. So I don't know. Maybe he knows something. But here was my take. And after seeing this today, and them going out to that side of the ranch, it could almost be anything.
Right.
And it also could be the way that it was picked up electronically by the photo sensors that are in video equipment, and that it is seeing something that is a bit different, that wouldn't have to have a lot of energy tied to it. Could it be something as simple as, and I'm just, I, just stay with me. You have little sensors on your cell phone, right?
Mhm.
And things that are projecting or sensing out. Could it have been something like that? That was because that flashed. So could it have been somebody walking around, maybe filming them? Right? I'm just speculating here. I don't know anything, but it was at ground level and not up high. Now they put cameras out there, right? They went out there and installed some cameras in the trees. That was a blind spot there on the ranch, and now they've got that covered.
Right.
And so what you want with anything, Christina, you want this to repeat, right? You want it to happen again, and hopefully they'll be able to capture whatever is emitting this light or light source, and they'll catch it on camera.
Oof, that'd be interesting. I'd love to see that. And then moving onward, they bring in the straight shot drillers again from last year. We saw them in the last episode, and they were kind of prepping for this episode to see what they were going to uncover. So with this team, they're drilling into the mesa. We're all anticipating answers. We're like, give us the answers. What's under there, right? What's this dome shaped object that we keep hearing about? And they were only able to get in so deep into the mesa before they weren't able to drill anymore. The main guy stated, We're not able to continue. It's just stopping. And it's like, it's just coming against something incredibly hard. But prior to hitting this hard object, the drill was going in the mesa like butter. That's how he described it. And I was hoping to see some evidence of something when they were able to kind of pull out all of that water and all like the little sediments and filaments and stuff to get something that we could see. Like last year they were able to get a little piece of metal. They were able to send it to Utah State University, I believe, and get that analyzed. But in this case, we got nothing. But we were left with the idea from previous episodes and into this one that there may be two anomalous potential objects, one dome shaped and one shaped like a tower, or that tower anomaly that was caught on radar a few episodes back could be a void, like a cave tunnel of sorts, which will be really interesting. But the drill bit had a transmitter which was at a frequency of 33 megahertz, communicating with the portable triangulation device on top of the mesa and the actual controlled interface on the drill rig, which was really interesting. So Travis and Eric were keeping an eye on that to see if they would see anything weird with the signal or any interferences. And sure enough, there was an interference with that 33 megahertz signal. What happened?
Well, and as we later found out, now this I thought uh, was a very key point in this show, and certainly in this investigation. We find out that the drill is applying about 8,000 pounds of pressure. That's a lot of pressure.
Yes.
And was just spinning. The drill operator, I think when they pulled the drill bit out, he was expecting that drill bit to be mangled or worn down. And as it turned out, the drill bit was actually fine. There was no wear on it, but it had come up against something and was just spinning over the top of it. Now, obviously, the question is, what is there That is so 8,000 pounds of pressure with a drill bit is a lot. I mean, a lot of pressure. Travis's animated response to that. Wow, 8,000 pounds. Well, no, it was warranted. 8,000 pounds of pressure is a lot of pressure on that drill bit. And for it to go nowhere, what is it that it is coming up against? And again, we just don't know. Now, in the end of the episode, now, it's always Thomas, right, that comes up with the smart stuff. But Thomas says there's the triangulation device for the 33 megahertz, and that sits on the top of the mesa. And you need that so you know how far the drill bit is going in, and also the angle of it. You want to make sure that you're moving in the right direction, and that is it sitting on the top of the mesa. That Thomas, once again, spoiler alert, all right, this is at the end of the episode. He goes, hey, why aren't we drilling from the top down? Why don't we just go and it's like, yeah, no kidding, right? I think that all of us, I know I have, from the very beginning, have thought, why not bring something? Now, the mesa's high. You've got to bring up heavy equipment and somehow get it on top of the mesa. I understand that it sounds easier than it probably is to pull off. But why not drill from the top down? All right, let's do that and hit the top of the dome. If they or whatever is under there, I just said dome, like I know it's a dome. We don't know what it is, but yeah, and they also so that's, I think we're going to see that hopefully this season, that they're going to get a drill to the top of the mesa and then go straight down. They sieved, okay, so they sieved what they drilled out and didn't find anything. And no more of the ceramic tile stuff that's on the outside of the space shuttle that appears to be manufactured. They didn't get any fragments at all, from what I could see. Did you see anything in that mud?
They didn't provide us that. They just said that they didn't really see anything. But Dr. Travis Taylor brought up a really interesting point. I would say a speculation, a hypothesis, that what if there was this massive force field on the outside of this object, and that's why they weren't able to get these types of metal filaments like they were able to last time. And I was thinking, I don't know, for Dr. Travis Taylor to say something like that, that's pretty wild. But what's even crazier is when I was watching the episode, I was thinking to myself, what if it was a force field? And then Travis said it, and I was like, we're on the same wavelength, Travis. Thank you for that.
Yeah,
but it's just
he has no fear in going there.
no. But the thing is that it's mere speculation. We have no idea as of yet. Could that change? I sure do hope so. That would be amazing technology to be aware of and to possess, right? But is that the case? Did they hit something else like a super hard rock and it wasn't metal? We have to consider these things as well. We weren't given any answers. And the disappointing aspect to this, and maybe it was asked, but it didn't make the cut on the show, is no one on the team asked, are there any natural items, any natural rocks that your drill bit wouldn't be able to go through?
Well, there's the hardest rock is diorite. And so I believe, I could be wrong, but it's called diorite because of diamond, right? DIA, being the hardest material, natural material. So can you, okay, well, let's look. Can you drill through diorite?
This is live. He is checking this live right now to give us the answers. It's a great question.
Yes, you can. Okay, so the now that is if it is diorite, diorite. It's diorite, diorite. But I I would assume I'm a guy. I love mechanical things and these giant drills and cranes and stuff that they're bringing out. I'm fascinated with that. But a drill like that is designed to just cut through anything. I don't think it has issues with, well, it might with steel, but you would maybe, or something like that, you would change the drill bit and then continue. But to have it stop and hit something that it can't drill through, then what is it?
And then it didn't ruin the drill bit as well.
Yeah, I don't think it's. I don't think what they came up against was rock. I don't. I think it would just, like you said earlier, just cut through it like butter, and they were having no issues. They got in 160 feet, and they spent 30 minutes spinning, and you could hear at 8,000 pounds pressure, you could hear that high pitch whiny sound that you get with any drift. You've drilled at your house and you've tried to drill through metal with the drill bit and you get that sound, or try to drill through reinforced concrete with the wrong drill bit. It just won't go through and you have to sit and listen to that squeaking sound. And that's exactly what they got there. So I'm not sure what it is they've come up against, but certainly something is there to stop a drill like that. I find it incredible.
And while they were drilling through this item, whatever it may be, this anomalous object, Travis had noticed that the 33 megahertz signal was kind of spreading. So Eric thought of this idea of, okay, go ahead and bring the drill bit in and out, tapping on this object and see how the signal will react. And in fact, the signal would go back to its peak, go back to its normal 33 megahertz frequency, and then when the drill would hit this whatever it is, the signal would kind of spread. So I really liked that aspect that we were able to see them do experiments and see it kind of in real time, where they had this idea and they acted upon it in that moment. I thought that was really cool, and I would have liked to have received obviously more information on that, but it also could have been a propagating waveform. Like the structure could be big enough as well.
Yeah. Now I am trying to find out what is the hardest. Metaquartzite is really hard. That's a classification of stones, and aside from diamond. I believe it's diorite that would be the next hardest stone. I'm just very interested in this. Seeing this anomaly pop up, keep this on the screen. What does everybody see here? Well, if you look really closely, and Travis didn't bring this up, but those spikes, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, not the one in the center, but the other ones, those are all exactly equally spaced. Okay.
Yeah, they're symmetrical. I'm
The-
I'm glad you brought that up, Jimmy.
Yeah. Yep. So, what is the frequency between the spaces? And is this an anomaly just created from the 33 megahertz and the drilling that was going on? It's something repeatable in the sound spectrum. I don't know. But those are, you can look at it and see that those are exactly equally spaced. So, Cristina, if you can send me this screen grab, I will blow it up and I will see what kind of analysis I can do on this and see what. Now, down below, you have the graph below, and then you have the spectrum analysis below that. It's the same thing. And you can see the white lines there. I would bet my bottom dollar that those are exactly spaced. Okay, so I just don't know what the frequency separation is between them. That could be it's like an echo, right? It could be some natural replication of it, but those spikes are there. And then they went away when they stopped drilling. Now, was it because they stopped drilling or because the sound wasn't being created? But very interesting because you can see it, right? And those are 6 equidistant spikes.
Ryan brings up a great point. That's called harmonics, and echo harmonics, which get smaller and smaller as they go further from the 33 megahertz, is something that would make sense when we're looking at this right here. So, Ryan, good job on that.
Yeah, well, harmonics and overtones over another tone, but you would assume that, and this is where this is correct and also incorrect too as well. So, square can be a rectangle, rectangle can't be a square kind of thing. In that these are exact frequency points. Harmonic overtones would happen further apart or get closer together. You would see them space out further apart away from that, where these are equidistant. So I'm not so sure now. If those are harmonic overtones, that's really, 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 really strange. I just don't know what this is. Are these 1,000? Are these 1K apart, 2K apart, 2.1K apart? I don't know. But send me this graph. Send me this screen grab, and I'll take a closer look and see what I can find out.
I will. Moving on, we get to see Thomas and Caleb put up a trail cam on one of the south, like in an area on the south side of the ranch, because Thomas had mentioned that there's a lot of cameras looking up at the sky, but there aren't a lot really looking at the ground, kind of ground level. So they went ahead and they placed a trail cam on one of these trees. And what they began to find when they were kind of like walking around, cleaning up the branches and stuff, they find a deer carcass. And in this, they find the pelvis, they find the spine, and they find hide. That's about it. But it was so compelling to them that they end up bringing a veterinarian by the name of Haley, and it was mentioned in the show that she specializes in animal forensics. But we're not really left, and we at this time, this is from a year ago now, they weren't left with a lot of evidence other than the hide, the pelvis, and the spine. And Haley had mentioned, well, the cause of death is unknown. There are a few puncture wounds, but there's no blood on the hide and things like this. And while I love the word unexplained, I'm like, yes, that's so awesome. There just isn't a significant amount of evidence to say that it was something mundane or something unexplained, because what she did mention was that this was a fawn about 6 months old. Could it have been that it died from disease? That's why there isn't any blood on the hide. Could it have been that the mother abandoned the baby deer, right? As it had to fend for itself. We have to think about these things, and maybe those were discussed, but again, it didn't make it on the show. But then there was a possible correlation that was discussed with the burn on the fence post and the dead deer, but we don't see any burns on the hide, or we don't see any burned bones either. And if there was burns on the carcass, it would be an entirely different and more ominous ball game. But in this case, and again, only a limited amount of information makes it on the show, but doesn't mean that causation equals correlation, that the deer and this burnt post have any connection with each other.
You know what I thought immediately with the carcass and the burnt post? Lightning.
But even if it was lightning, there would have been hopefully some evidence at the very least on the hide. But there wasn't.
Not if you're just electrocuted. I'm just saying, a little deer down in the bubbling brook, just drinking the water and then, blah, and then just, that's all I'm saying. Look, the burnt post was friggin' interesting. I stopped and went, now, All right, just in that specifics, and then but then you've got the deer, and now they jumped to some conclusions about the deer, which made me think lightning strike. All right, so a couple of things. One, they immediately said, it wasn't an animal attack, right? Okay, that there was no blood. Okay, that the deer apparently just dropped dead, and that. And the fourth thing that she brought up was that there were puncture wounds because she picked up the fur, the hide, and that there were puncture wounds that happened after the deer had died. Now, I think that it's jumping to a lot of conclusions before we know a whole lot. Is it interesting? Yes. In the same apparent location, that you start to put things together, the burn mark and things. I'm thinking lightning. The whole fence post wasn't burned. Nothing else in the area was burned. Was it just a simple lightning strike? Deer got electrocuted and shocked as bubbling brook, bubbling brook, deer.
But see, if it was a lightning strike, don't you think that the top of the post or the majority of the post would have been burned? I mean, that kind of angle that we're seeing right here is odd. But I'm also not familiar too much with
Right.
posts.
Well, keep this image up. What do you see right below at the bottom of the burn mark?
Here?
Wire.
Right.
Yeah. Lightning. I mean, I don't know. Could I? I'm just saying. It feels like I'm not there. I find that very, very compelling. Why would that have been caught on fire? Unless it's some kids with a Bic lighter out goofing around and trying to burn down a fence post, which wouldn't make any sense. But what else would cause something like that? Lightning, right? I would think. I don't think I'm going too whack here. I think I'm staying pretty close in the zone. I'm thinking lightning, and if the deer is connected to it, maybe the deer just got, bubbling brook.
Well, wire could have conducted the lightning away from the rest of the post. So like I can get that. I can get that.
I'm just saying, blasted through the post, right? Glancing
Okay.
low and zap that poor cute little deer, bubbling brook. The poor deer's just there, thirsty, just minding its own business, and
Trying
then
to live its best life.
yeah,
Dang.
exactly. So I don't know, but very interesting. Cattle mutilation, puncture wounds, no blood. Okay, we're starting to see something interesting. I'm not so sure now. Okay, but I will say this: I thought the fence post was interesting. Puncture marks, interesting. The bones seem pretty complete. I thought that was strange. The spine, right, and things. You would have thought that if it was some predatory animal, that they would have, do their thing and rip it to shreds, and that wasn't the case. It seemed pretty complete. Were you surprised to see the fur just sitting there?
Yes, I was, and also slightly no. It was a little bit of 2 and 2. And the great thing is that we did a whole episode on cattle mutilations. We even watched a whole deer decompose in 2 weeks. So I kept that image in mind while watching this. And we can see that it's been there for, at the very least, 2 to 3 weeks. The bones were completely clean. Yes, the spine was beautifully intact, but there's a lot of pieces that were still missing. Then you look at the hide. Yes, it was beautifully intact. Now, here's the thing. The climate in Utah is very dry. So I'm like, okay. I can kind of buy that the fur wouldn't be totally all over the place and decomposed. But here's the but, Jimmy,
Mm.
is that if bugs were going through the fur into the flesh and eating that, right? Then the fur shouldn't have been intact. Okay? That's I mean, we saw that in the video in the episode of cattle mutilations. Now, could there have been an exception? It's a possibility that the hide was just nicely cleaned off and you got like the good back of it, right? And it's totally dried up. I mean, when the veterinarian was holding that, it looked very dry. It looked very hard as well. Like it's been there for, again, at the very, very least, a few weeks into like a month or two. But it was an interesting look, I think, overall. But the aspect of the spinal cord being intact, that's not necessarily that weird, but it is slightly odd.
It is. Now, with the property that big, right? How many acres is it? 600, right? Okay, I don't know. Please, everybody, save your email. Don't correct me on this. But we do know it's a big chunk of land. And I would think that there are, dead animals all over the place, that this isn't, some anomalous discovery of a deer carcass. I would think that there would be many found there. The question is in such close proximity to this burn mark on this fence post, which I do find strange, and it looked fresh, so there you go. What's next?
Well, the next thing we can move on, and yes, it is in the same area, just to hit what you're to touch on what you mentioned. But the next aspect that we can talk about is let me pull up this. Nope, is the red rock. Because this is where it's getting like a little interesting here, because we saw last week that Dragon and Caleb, they put in a like a camera with on a wire to kind of go into the mesa and see if they find anything weird. They take some images of this red rock that supposedly shouldn't be there. Which I'm really sad about is that they didn't take any samples to send that to Utah State University. They only sent these images. And Dave Politis made a really great point in his review on the show today on his channel, Cam Man Missing. And he said, could it be the residue from the red smoke bombs that they dropped into the holes on the side of the mesa last year? Because the celium that Travis mentioned, that's just speculation, because they didn't actually get any samples to give to the Utah State University. They merely provided images. So how can they be certain that it is that it is
Selenium.
selenium? Thank you so much. But if they were able to receive a sample and it turned out to be red phosphorus, then they could have been like, oh, okay, it's the smoke bombs. It's nothing that strange. So right there, I was like, they could have done better. And then in the show, the team mentioned vapor. And I'm like, vapor, smoke bombs, come on. Like, put the two and two together.
Possible. Now, Polides is a pretty smart guy. All right. And so I like the idea of putting everything out there so we can stop and think about it. But this to me looks like a coating. Phosphorus and
Which they mentioned.
right. This looks liquidy, that it was liquid, and I think it's been there for a while. Now, that's just my eyeballs. But smoke residue from something like that would be a powdery, non-reflective thing. And here you can see that it looks pretty thick. And at some point was turned into a liquid, probably from heat or over time. Now, again, I don't know. I'm just speaking from what my eyes are telling me. Like if you poured paint over concrete or rocks or whatever, the paint would have that shiny, and fill in and smooth over the surface. And that's what this looks like to me here. So now, is it hard now? Is it sticky? We don't know any of these things, but getting a test now, you test it and it turns out to be phosphorus and it's still in that state. That was one heck of a smoke bomb.
Oh yeah, and the great thing about that test, I think that was last season or the season prior, what was so cool is that like they dropped these smoke bombs, but no smoke came out of the mesa. It got like sucked in, and they classified it as a vacuum. So that right there was super cool. Now, if that's the case for this, and it is a smoke bomb, I would like for them, if possible, to go deeper into the camera and see where the red just stops, right? If they were given the resources to do so, that would be super cool. But then I also thought of like weather conditions. Let's say it rained and the water went down into these little crevices. Would that red phosphorus still be there? Would it still be stuck on the rocks, or would it have washed away?
Yeah, and how deep does this go? How much of it is there? You're talking about a camera lens that's this big, that's being pointed around at a very specific area. So we don't even know what we're looking at here. Are we looking at an area that is this big covered with this, or is it the entire crevice leading into this break in the rocks? That goes down hundreds of feet or something. We don't know. We don't have those answers. If it was me, I'd be right back up there doing a biopsy. I would do a biopsy on that cavern. I would get something down there to claw a piece of that out and go and get that tested and see what that is.
That would
See if it chips off the wall, or doesn't it look moist, like it might be sticky and wet?
Okay, well, here's the thing, Jimmy. They get really heavy rainstorms there. I see them on the Insider Project webcams all the time. And the water comes down off the mesa, the run water, and there's erosion there. So if they are getting these super massive heavy rainstorms, would it have washed away this material from inside of the mesa? Like, that's my biggest question. And I
Sure.
need to know.
If it was, powder from the smoke bombs, from the smoke and the vapor, I would think that would just wash off.
You would think so, but somehow a year later, it's still there.
Yeah. Now, maybe the water mixed with the phosphorus and it turned into a sticky, pasty residue and it formed this, and Pilates could be onto something. So I don't know. We don't know anything unless we go in there and do a biopsy. I don't know what you would call collect some samples from this wall and see what this actually is. Yeah, I thought it was a good episode. Now it tended to be a little bit of filler. I understand that, and setting up stuff for later on in the season, but we'll see what next week brings us.
I would like to see what happens next. But before we end, something else I'd like to mention about this rock is that there's a lot of iron oxide in the rocks there, and that's something to consider as well. So, but could it be some kind of living growth, like a red moss or lichen, right?
Yeah, I've seen the movie The Blob.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We don't know. There's so many. What's different with this show and others that are like it is that we've got the location, we've got interesting things to go and check out and measure and analyze and scientifically, get sensors on and do some laboratory testing. And so all you can do now, which is the exciting part, is get results. So
Right.
I think we're eventually going to see a lot of that with the secret of Skinwalker Ranch. Pretty cool.
Well, we are getting closer to the end of the season, so hopefully we'll see some really awesome new things that we haven't seen prior. Hopefully they'll come to new revelations on what's going on there.
How many
But
episodes are left?
I'm not sure. I don't know if it ends at 10 or 12 episodes.
Right.
But right now, either way, we're kind of in the halfway mark. We're on episode 6.
Right.
So there's still a lot more to come.
Right. So if it's 10, we have 4 episodes left. It's a nail biter. This is great stuff. And what a great review today. I enjoyed this episode. And we'll see what happens next week. Thank you so much, Cristina.
Thank you for doing this review with me. And I would like to mention that I have Eric Bard coming on the show just soon after this one. So do check that out and hear his insights, his experiences, and his research that he does on the ranch. So that's going to be really awesome. Jimmy, thank you so much for doing this review with me. I'll catch you later. Oh, actually, hold on. Let me end it